The sound of the wrench slipping echoed through the quiet street, sharp and sudden, followed by a low breath of frustration. John paused, crouched beside the old sedan, his hands resting on his knees. The hood was still open, tilted like a tired mouth that refused to explain what hurt. Oil stained his fingers, dark and stubborn, no matter how many times he wiped them on the rag tucked into his back pocket. The afternoon sun leaned low, warming the cracked concrete of the driveway. Somewhere nearby, a lawn sprinkler clicked on and off, like it couldn't quite make up its mind. It was one of those ordinary days that didn't ask for attention, the kind of day that slipped by unnoticed unless something interrupted it. John had learned to appreciate days like that. He reached back into the engine, adjusting a loose hose, listening for a change in the car's breathing. The engine coughed once when he turned the key, then went silent again. He exhaled slowly through his nose and leaned his head back, staring up at the pale blue sky between the branches of the maple tree in the yard. Fixing the car had become his quiet ritual. When things felt too heavy, he worked with his hands. Metal made sense, bolts tightened or loosened, problems either stayed broken or didn't. There was comfort in that honesty. From inside the house, a screen door creaked open. John didn't turn right away. He already knew the sound of those footsteps. Light, uneven, moving too fast for the size they belonged to. "Daddy!" Her voice was small, but it carried. It always did. John smiled before he turned around. "Yeah, kiddo?" Lily stood at the edge of the driveway, her sneakers half on, one sock sliding down her ankle. Her brown hair was pulled into a crooked ponytail that had clearly been done in a hurry. She clutched a stuffed rabbit under one arm, its ears limp from years of being loved too hard. She hesitated, rocking slightly on her heels, like she wasn't sure if she should come closer. John wiped his hands again and stood up, careful not to rush her. "What's up?" She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped. Her eyes flicked toward the open hood of the car, then back to his face. Something about the way she held herself made his smile fade just a little. "Lily?" She took a step forward, then another, each step slower than the last. "I heard the car make a loud noise," she said. "It's okay," John replied, "just being stubborn, like me." Normally that would have made her grin. Normally she would have bounced over, climbed onto the curb, and asked if she could hand him tools she didn't know the names of. But she didn't smile. She stopped a few feet away, her fingers tightening around the rabbit. The wind lifted a strand of her hair and brushed it across her cheek. She didn't push it away. "Daddy," she said again. Something in her voice made him straighten. Not fear, not panic, just different, softer, thinner. He crouched down so they were at eye level. "Hey, what is it?" For a moment she didn't answer. She just looked at him. Really looked, like she was trying to memorize his face, the lines near his eyes, the grease smudge on his cheek he hadn't noticed yet, the way he always squinted when the sun was behind her. "I don't like when you're under the car," she said finally. John let out a small breath. "I know, but I'm careful." She nodded, but it didn't seem to reassure her. "I had a bad thought," she whispered. He didn't interrupt. He'd learned not to rush her when she said things like that. She shifted her weight again. "I thought, what if the car falls? Or what if it doesn't start anymore? Or what if—" Her voice trailed off. John reached out and rested his hand lightly on her shoulder. "Lily, look at me. She did. I'm right here," he said. "Okay?" She nodded again, quicker this time, like she wanted to agree, but her eyes were shiny, and her throat moved when she swallowed. "I don't like bad thoughts," she said. "Me neither." They stayed like that for a moment. The world didn't rush them. A bird landed on the fence and then flew away. A car passed at the end of the street, its tires humming softly. John stood and pulled her into a hug, careful not to smear oil on her shirt. She pressed her face into his chest and breathed him in, as if checking that he was real. When she pulled back, her voice was different. Not shaky, older. "Daddy," she said quietly, "if something ever happened to you—" John felt it then, a tightness he hadn't expected. "Hey, let's not. Just listen," she said. He froze. Lily had never said that before, never interrupted him, never asked him to listen like that. Her small hand slid into his, warm and steady. "If something ever happened to you," she repeated, "I wouldn't know how to be brave by myself." The words landed gently. No drama, no tears, just truth, laid down between them. John's throat closed. He crouched again so he wouldn't be towering over her, so she wouldn't see how hard it hit him. "Nothing's happening to me," he said, softly but firmly. "I promise." She nodded, but her grip didn't loosen. "I know," she said. "I just needed to say it." He pulled her into another hug, tighter this time, and rested his chin on the top of her head. He could feel her breathing slow, could feel the tension ease just a little. Behind them, the car sat silent, unfinished, forgotten. John stayed there with her longer than necessary, longer than practical, because some moments didn't need fixing. When she finally stepped back, she wiped her nose with her sleeve and gave him a small, embarrassed smile. "Can I have a snack?" He laughed, the sound breaking through the heaviness like sunlight through clouds. "Of course you can." She turned toward the house, then paused and looked back. "Daddy? Yeah? Be careful, okay? I will." She nodded, satisfied, and disappeared inside, the screen door slamming softly behind her. John stood there alone in the driveway, the echo of her words still wrapped around him. He looked at the car, then at the house, and then back at the sky. For the first time that day, he didn't reach for his tools. He just stood there, listening to the quiet, wondering why such a small voice could leave such a deep mark, and why it felt like something had shifted, even though nothing visible had changed at all. That evening, the car stayed unfinished. John washed his hands at the kitchen sink, watching dark streaks of oil swirl away and disappear. Down the drain. He scrubbed longer than necessary, as if the water might carry something else with it. Lily sat at the small table behind him, swinging her legs and crunching apple slices between her teeth. The radio on the counter murmured low, an old country station that faded in and out depending on where you stood. "Daddy?" she said, mouth full. "Did you fix it?" "Not yet," he replied. "Tomorrow." She nodded, accepting the answer easily. Children were good at that. They trusted tomorrow. John turned off the tap and dried his hands on a towel. He glanced at the clock, a little after 6. The light outside had softened, turning the kitchen window into a pale mirror. For a second, he saw himself reflected there, tired eyes, shoulders slightly hunched, like he was always bracing for something. He forced the thought away and grabbed a pan from the cabinet. Dinner was simple: scrambled eggs, toast. Lily liked to help, standing on a chair and handing him things he didn't need yet. She narrated the process like it was a story only she understood. "And now you stir. Not too fast. The eggs get dizzy," she said seriously. John smiled. "Good tip." They ate together, mostly quiet. Not an uncomfortable quiet, just the kind that came from knowing each other too well to need filling every space. Lily hummed softly to herself, tapping her fork against the plate in an uneven rhythm. After dinner, John washed the dishes while Lily colored at the table. She stayed inside the lines more carefully than she used to. He noticed that. He noticed a lot of small things these days. When bedtime came, she brushed her teeth without being asked twice. She even picked up her crayons before. He reminded her. That, more than anything, made his chest ache. In her room, the lamp cast a warm circle of light over the bed. The walls were still painted the soft yellow her mother had chosen years ago. John had never changed it. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because it felt like erasing something he wasn't ready to touch. Lily climbed under the covers and scooted to the middle of the bed. "Story?" she asked. John sat on the edge and picked up the book from the nightstand. It was the same one they'd read a dozen times. He started reading, his voice low and steady. Halfway through the second page, he felt her breathing slow. He kept reading anyway. When he finished, he closed the book gently and set it down. Lily's eyes fluttered open. "Daddy? Yeah. You're not mad at me, right?" The question caught him off guard. "Why would I be mad? For saying the thing earlier?" John shook his head immediately. "No, never." She studied his face like she was checking for cracks. "Okay." He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Sleep." She smiled, small and satisfied, and turned onto her side. John lingered in the doorway after turning off the light. He stood there longer than usual, listening to the quiet of the house. It creaked and settled around him, familiar as breathing. Later, when the house was fully asleep, he sat alone on the couch with the television muted. The screen flickered with images he wasn't really watching. His phone rested in his hand, dark and heavy. He didn't turn it on right away. He thought about Lily's voice, not what she said, but how she said it, calm, certain. Like she had already spent time with the thought before bringing it to him. Eventually, he unlocked the phone and opened the calendar. A reminder blinked at him, tomorrow, small text, something he'd been avoiding. He stared at it until his eyes burned. The next morning came too fast. John woke before the alarm, the house still wrapped in early light. He moved quietly, making coffee and packing Lily's lunch. When she came into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, he smiled like everything was normal. "Morning, sunshine," she yawned. "Morning." At school drop-off, she hugged him longer than usual, not tight, just longer. He felt her fingers curl into the fabric of his shirt before she pulled away and ran inside. He stood there for a moment after the door closed. At home, the driveway felt different. The car waited where he'd left it, hood still open, silent and patient. John rolled up his sleeves and got to work, forcing his focus onto the task. He turned bolts, checked connections, listened closely. The engine sputtered when he tried again. "Almost caught. Come on," he muttered, more to himself than the car. It started on the third try. The sound filled the driveway, rough but alive. John laughed softly, relief loosening something in his chest. He closed the hood and wiped his hands. The phone buzzed in his pocket. He froze. For a second, he considered ignoring it, just for a minute, just to enjoy the small victory. But he didn't, he answered, listening quietly, nodding even though no one could see him. His face didn't change much. He had practiced that. After the call ended, he stayed where he was, phone still pressed to his ear. The street was empty, the sky wide and blue, the world looked exactly the same. Inside, though, something shifted. That afternoon, Lily came home full of stories about school. A classmate had lost a tooth. Someone spilled paint everywhere. She talked while John made snacks, her words bouncing off the walls. "Daddy, are you listening?" "Always." She watched him closely, like she had the day before. "You're quiet." He knelt in front of her. "Just tired." She nodded, accepting it. But she leaned into him when he hugged her, and he didn't miss that either. That night, after she was asleep, John sat at the kitchen table with a piece of paper in front of him. It stayed blank for a long time. He finally wrote a name at the top, Lily. His hand shook slightly as he stared at it. He folded the paper carefully and slid it into a drawer. Outside, the car cooled in the driveway, ticking softly in the dark. And in the quiet of the house, John wondered how long a person could hold something heavy without letting it show, and whether children somehow always knew when you were trying. The letter stayed in the drawer. John knew exactly where it was. He could picture the way the paper lay folded beneath a stack of old instruction manuals and warranty cards he no longer needed. Every morning after that night, he opened the drawer to grab his keys, saw the edge of it, and closed the drawer again without touching it. Some things felt safer when left unopened. Life moved forward in small, ordinary ways. Lily went to school. John went to work. The car ran better than it had in months, though it still made a faint clicking sound when turning left. John told himself he'd look at it later. In the evenings, Lily sat on the floor while he cooked, arranging her stuffed animals in careful rows. She gave each one a role. The rabbit was always the listener. The bear was the brave one. A small, faded dog with a missing eye was usually the one who needed help. John noticed which one she talked to the most. One night, while he washed dishes, Lily dragged a chair across the kitchen floor and climbed up beside him. She rested her chin on the counter and watched his hands move through the soapy water. "You didn't fix the car noise," she said. "Not yet," she hummed. "You said tomorrow." "I did. That was a lot of tomorrows ago." John smiled faintly. "You're keeping track, huh?" She nodded. "Someone has to." He glanced at her. "Does it bother you?" She shrugged, a careful movement. "Not really. I just don't like when things sound hurt." The words settled between them. Later that week, the school called. Nothing serious, just a meeting. John took the afternoon off work, something he rarely did. Lily sat beside him in the small office, swinging her legs, counting the dots in the carpet. "She's doing well," the teacher said kindly. "Very thoughtful, very observant." John nodded. "That sounds like her." "There's just one thing," the teacher continued. "She sometimes worries about things that are bigger than her. She asks questions that show a lot of awareness." John glanced at Lily. She was tracing shapes on her knee with her finger, eyes fixed on the window. "What kind of questions?" he asked. The teacher hesitated. "About safety. About what happens if someone doesn't come back." John felt his jaw tighten. "I see." After the meeting, they walked to the car in silence. Lily climbed into her seat and buckled herself, slower than usual. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. No, John said quickly. Not at all. She relaxed a little. Okay. They drove home with the windows down, the wind lifting Lily's hair. She leaned her head against the door, watching the houses pass. That night, John found her standing in the hallway after bedtime, her rabbit tucked under her arm. I couldn't sleep, she said. He crouched. Bad thoughts again? She nodded. Do you want to talk about them? She hesitated, then shook her head. Not yet. He opened his arms. She stepped into them without thinking. They stayed there longer than either of them spoke. The next morning, John finally opened the drawer. He took the letter out and sat at the kitchen table, staring at Lily's name. He added a few more words beneath it. His handwriting wasn't neat. It didn't need to be. He folded the paper again and slipped it back. At work, he missed a step and scraped his knuckles. The sting was sharp, grounding. He welcomed it more than he should have. That evening, as he pulled into the driveway, he noticed something odd. Lily's bike was tipped over near the garage. She was usually careful with it. Lily? He called as he stepped inside. No answer. His heart kicked hard, fast, before he heard her voice from the backyard. I'm here. Relief washed through him, quick and strong. He followed the sound and found her sitting on the grass, legs crossed, the rabbit beside her. She was talking to Mrs. Carter from next door, an older woman who walked with a cane and always smelled like peppermint. Oh, hi, John, Mrs. Carter said. Hope you don't mind. Lily came over to say hello. Of course not, he said, though his voice was still catching up with his pulse. Lily looked up at him. Mrs. Carter lost her husband. Mrs. Carter smiled sadly. A long time ago. John swallowed. I see. She says she still talks to him sometimes, Lily continued. In her head. Mrs. Carter nodded. Helps me feel less alone. Lily turned to John. Is that okay? John didn't answer right away. He watched Lily's face, open and earnest. Yes, he said finally. That's okay. That night, Lily asked him a question he hadn't prepared for. Daddy, she said as he tucked her in, if someone goes away, do they take their love with them? John sat on the edge of the bed. No, he said slowly. Love stays. She thought about that. Even if they don't? Yes. She smiled then, a real one. Good. After she fell asleep, John sat alone in the dark living room. The house felt too quiet. He reached for his phone, then stopped. Instead, he went to the drawer and took out the letter again. He read it all the way through this time. The twist came quietly, the way most truths did. It wasn't about leaving. It was about preparing. John realized he hadn't been afraid of dying. He'd been afraid of Lily feeling unprepared for living. The thought loosened something inside him. He picked up a pen and added another page. Not instructions, not warnings, memories, small ones. The way Lily laughed when she ran, the way she listened harder than she spoke, the way her voice had changed that afternoon in the driveway, steady and brave and far older than it should have been. He wrote until his hand cramped. Outside, the car clicked softly as it cooled. Inside, John felt for the first time in weeks like he was doing something not fixing, just being present. And somewhere in the quiet house, Lily slept, her rabbit tucked beneath her chin, unaware that her voice had already changed everything. The days slowed after that, not in a way anyone else would notice. The mornings still came. The bus still stopped at the corner. The mail still landed with a soft thud on the porch. But inside John, time began to stretch, each moment asking for more attention than it used to. He stopped rushing. He woke up earlier, not because he had to, but because he wanted a few quiet minutes before Lily stirred. He made coffee and sat at the table, not scrolling, not thinking ahead, just listening to the house breathe. The refrigerator hummed. The floor creaked when it cooled. Ordinary sounds, anchors. When Lily came into the kitchen, he noticed how she watched him, not nervously, thoughtfully, as if she was checking whether he was still there in the same way she remembered. Morning, she said. Morning, he answered, and meant more than the word. He walked her to school instead of driving, even when he was running late. They held hands crossing the street. Lily talked about small things, a spelling test, a bird's nest she'd seen near the playground. John listened, without correcting, without steering the conversation anywhere else. At work, he made mistakes, small ones, a missed email, a forgotten tool. His boss noticed but didn't comment. John didn't mind. His attention felt needed elsewhere. The letter grew thicker. Every few nights after Lily was asleep, John added to it. He wrote about the way rain smelled on warm pavement, about how to make grilled cheese without burning it, about how it was okay to feel scared and brave at the same time. He didn't write about the call. He didn't write dates or details. He wrote like someone leaving breadcrumbs, not warnings. One evening, Lily wandered into the living room while he was writing. He hadn't heard her. "Daddy?" she said softly. He flinched, then relaxed. "Hey, what's up?" She pointed to the paper. "Is that for work?" He folded it slowly. "No. For me?" He hesitated. Just long enough for her to notice. "Maybe," he said. She climbed onto the couch beside him, careful not to wrinkle the pages. "Can I read it?" "Not yet." She considered that. "When?" "When you're bigger." "How much bigger?" He smiled faintly, big enough to understand. She leaned against him, satisfied with the answer for now. They sat together without speaking. The television stayed off. The quiet wasn't empty. It felt full. That weekend, the car wouldn't start again. John turned the key once, twice, nothing. Lily stood beside him in the driveway, rabbit tucked under her arm. "It sounds tired," she said. "Yeah," John replied. "Me too." He closed the hood and sat on the curb. Lily joined him, their shoulders touching. "We can walk," she said. "We can—" They walked to the store together, hands brushing, steps uneven. The sun was high. The street felt wide and forgiving. Halfway there, Lily started skipping. John watched her, the way her shadow jumped with her. "Daddy," she said suddenly, still moving, "if you ever get really tired, I can help." He stopped walking. She turned back, concerned. "Did I say it wrong?" "No," he said, kneeling in front of her. "You said it right." He took her hands, small and warm. "But it's to your job to help me be okay." "I know," she said quickly. "I just want—" The words stayed with him long after they returned home. That night, John didn't write. He sat on the edge of Lily's bed after she fell asleep, watching her chest rise and fall. He counted breaths without meaning to. Regret crept in quietly. He regretted the nights he'd been distracted, the times he'd answered his phone instead of her questions, the mornings he'd rushed her shoes on without noticing which sock she chose first. He also felt something else. Hope, not the loud kind, the kind that whispered. The next day, John made a call of his own. He didn't tell Lily about it. Not because it was a secret, because it was unfinished. In the afternoon, Lily brought home a drawing. It showed a stick figure man and a small girl holding hands beside a car. The car had a heart on it. "This is you fixing the car," she explained. John laughed softly. "That's not what it usually looks like." "I made it better," she said. He taped it to the refrigerator. That evening, Lily sat at the table while John cooked. She watched him the way she had the day he'd been under the hood. "Daddy," she said, her voice careful again. "Are you scared?" He didn't pretend. He didn't brush it away. Sometimes he said, "Me too." He nodded. "That's okay." She smiled, relieved. "Okay." Later, when she was asleep, John opened the drawer one more time. He took out the letter and held it, feeling its weight. Not fear, responsibility. He added one last page. It wasn't about what might happen. It was about what already had. About a little girl whose voice had changed, not because she'd grown older, but because she'd learned how to love deeply. John folded the paper and placed it back. Outside, the night settled gently over the house. Inside, he felt something close to peace, not because the future was certain, but because the present finally was. And in the quiet, he understood that whatever came next, they would meet it together. The appointment was on a Tuesday. John hadn't told Lily the exact reason. He only said he had to see a doctor, and that she would stay after school with Mrs. Carter for a little while. Lily accepted it with a nod that was too calm, like she already knew not to ask questions that didn't want answers yet. That morning, John made pancakes, not the rushed kind, the kind that took time. Lily stood on her chair, sprinkling chocolate chips carefully, counting them out loud to make sure each pancake had the same number. "Fairness," she said seriously. "Of course," John agreed. They ate slowly. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged him twice, once normal, once tight. "See you later," she said. "See you later. The words held. The appointment ended without drama. No raised voices, no sudden news, just conversations, options, timelines. John listened more than he spoke. When he left, the sky looked the same as it always had. He took a long breath before getting in the car. That evening, Lily was quiet, not worried, just thoughtful. She colored at the table while John cooked, her rabbit sitting beside her. The radio played low. Outside, the car ticked softly as it cooled. "Daddy," she said, not looking up. "Mrs. Carter says grown-ups sometimes don't tell kids things because they think it will make them scared." John stirred the pot slowly. "Some. Times. But sometimes kids are already scared," she continued. "And knowing helps." He turned off the stove and sat across from her. "You're right," he said. She finally looked up. "So, are you okay?" He met her eyes. "I'm okay today." She nodded, satisfied with the honesty. "Okay." After dinner, they sat on the couch together. Lily leaned against him, her head fitting perfectly under his chin. He wrapped an arm around her, feeling the steady warmth of her body. "Can you read to me?" she asked. "Of course." He read until her breathing slowed, until her fingers relaxed their grip on his shirt. When she was asleep, he carried her to bed, careful not to wake her. He tucked the rabbit under her arm and pulled the blanket up to her shoulders. This time, he didn't linger in the doorway. He went to the drawer. John took out the letter for the last time and placed it on the table. He added a final page, not long, just enough. Then he folded everything neatly and placed it in an envelope. He wrote Lily's name on the front, steady this time. He put it back. Not because he was done, because he trusted the timing. Days passed. Weeks. Life kept its rhythm. The car ran, the weather shifted. Lily grew an inch taller, lost a tooth, learned a new song at school and sang it off-key in the kitchen. John took more walks, took more pictures, fixed fewer things and sat longer when they broke. One afternoon, the car finally gave up. It sputtered, sighed, and stopped halfway down the street. John coasted it to the curb and laughed, shaking his head. "Well," he said, "that's that." Lily grinned from the passenger seat. "It tried. It did." They walked home together, hands swinging between them. That night, Lily surprised him. She climbed onto the couch beside him, serious again. "Daddy, yeah, if something ever happens," she said carefully, "you don't have to worry." His chest tightened. "Why's that?" "Because you already taught me how to be brave," she said. "You just forgot you did." John swallowed. He pulled her into a hug and held her there, letting the moment stay exactly as it was. Nothing dramatic happened after that. No sudden changes, no speeches, just time doing what time does. One morning, months later, John found the letter missing from the drawer. His heart skipped, then steadied. Lily sat at the table, reading. "Did you take something from my drawer?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I was big enough." He sat across from her. "How was it?" She folded the letter carefully and slid it back into the envelope. "It was good," she said. "You sound like you—" He smiled. "I was hoping—" She reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm not scared anymore. Neither was he." Outside, the day moved forward, ordinary and precious, and John understood then that the moment everything changed hadn't been the call or the letter or the fear. It had been a little girl running to him in a driveway, her voice steady, her love unmistakable. That had been enough. It always had been.